Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to see current affairs of 30th June 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 7 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see first topic. Title says ensure that no migrant worker goes hungry. Supreme Court instructs government. So to understand this article, you need to know some background. So as you know, COVID-19 entered into our lives in March 2020. Okay, it was first identified in China in 2019 December. So in March 2020, our government imposed a national-wide lockdown. So because of this imposition of a national-wide lockdown, so we saw plight of these migrant workers. Sudden abrupt imposition of this nationwide lockdown that led to plight of these migrant workers. So at that time, because of this nationwide imposition of lockdowns, we went for shutdown. Okay, shutdown of manufacturing units, construction sites, etc. So because of all these things, there is no proper livelihood. There is no proper work. There is no income for these people, and there is no proper transportation even to go to their hometowns. And we saw number of people, they also lost their life. So about 13 people, they lost their life when they slept on railway track. Suddenly train came. And also we saw many people, they lost their life on their journey to their home. And there is increase in poverty, increase in hunger. So because of all these things, Supreme Court gave some important decision. The Supreme Court said that, so these people also become our part of our society. So it is a role, it is a government responsibility to care or to take care of these people. So Supreme Court ordered that we need to go for one nation, one ration card. Because these migrant people, even though government which is providing a subsidized food grains, these people are not getting because of lack of proper ration cards, right? So we need to go for one nation, one ration card scheme. And as well as central government also took many steps, and as well as state government. Okay, so here this article mainly saying that Supreme Court gave deadline of July 31st and directed a central and as well as state to take some steps mainly for this migrant people. So this is some background and this is context. And now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So this topic will be important regarding GS paper to under society and social issues, and also regarding polity. So now let us try to see context first. So if you see context, it mainly says that Supreme Court said a government cannot abdicate its duties to feed migrant workers, especially during pandemic, merely because they do not have ration cards. So here Supreme Court mainly says that the government, they cannot abdicate its duties to feed these migrant workers, so especially during this global pandemic time, so merely because they are not having ration cards. So by saying this reason, like they are not having ration cards, the government cannot abdicate its duties to feed these migrant workers. So this is context. And if you see further more details, it mainly says that there are large number of such migrants. They do not possess any card because of poverty and as well as lack of education. So because of these people, they do not having these ration cards, they are not getting this free subsidized food grains under this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. Okay, so because of this here, even though they are not having any ration cards, your central government and as well as state governments, they need to take some steps to ensure that these people, they are getting this free food grains at subsidized rate and as well as free food grains under this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. So here Supreme Court mainly says that state cannot abdicate its duty towards such persons in this pandemic who are not able to get jobs which may satisfy their needs. So because of this, there is a need of support from government to sustain their lives. So if you're talking about Supreme Court directions, what directions which are given by Supreme Court? So first one is Supreme Court set July 31st as deadline for implementation of this One Nation One Ration Card scheme, and as well as it gave deadline for central government and as well as state government. So state government, they need to ensure bounden duty and they need to frame some schemes to distribute dry rations for these migrant workers. And if you're talking about central government, so they need to supply additional grains mainly which are demanded by states, and they need to ensure additional grains will be given to states for community kitchens. And it's when the Supreme Court also said that none among the estimated 38 crore migrant workers, they constitute about 1/4 of country's population, they are going hungry. And next one is Supreme Court need to take some considerable contributions to country's growth and economic development. And here Supreme Court says that right to food, it is one of bare necessities of life. So this right to food, which is intrinsic part of a right to live with dignity, that is right to life, which mainly comes under Article 21 of Indian Constitution, which mainly comes under Part 3 under fundamental rights. So this right cannot be denied. Okay. So these are some important directions which are given by Supreme Court. And now let us move back to background. So what is this issue? So in 2020, in March, government imposed abrupt nationwide lockdown. So because of this, that led to plight of migrant workers. There is no proper livelihood, there is no job opportunities, there is no income, there is no food to eat, there is no transport. That led to increase in poverty, increase in hunger, and as well as hunger related deaths especially. And what happened finally? People, migrant labor, they reached their hometown somehow, and that led to increase in demand for MGNREGA scheme, that is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, right? So recently, I think 2 days back also we studied about this article regarding this MGNREGA. So there are many activists are demanding for to increase furthermore 50 days of guarantee work under this scheme, because in this first 3 months of this financial year already 100 days of work completed. So here these activists or some groups are mainly demanding, or they wrote to government to increase furthermore 50 days under this scheme. So because of there is no laws, there is no job, and as well as there is no income, so here migrant people who migrated to their hometowns and they worked and they started working under this MGNREGA scheme. So because of this, there is increase in demand for this scheme, and it is providing some livelihood opportunities and some income opportunities for this migrant laborers, especially in rural areas. So what about that? Those people who are in these cities. So these people in cities, they do not have this type of employee guarantee scheme in urban areas. So further they are disadvantaged. And in this context, Supreme Court ordered that so we need to implement this One Nation One Ration Card and as well as dry rations. But people who are not having ration cards, they are denied from this free subsidized food grains which are given by government under this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. And if you are talking about what are the steps which are taken by central government came up with this fiscal stimulus package in 5 tranches, and under that it also came up with this extension of this MGNREGA scheme and as well as this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. And in second wave also we saw there is extension of this scheme till November 2021. And even recently Niti Aayog, which also came up with this draft national migrant labor policy also for welfare of this migrant people, and also central government which decided to create a database of migrant workers, okay, including workers who are in informal economy also. So these are the some important steps that are taken by central government. And if you are talking about states, they went for establishing of these community kitchens to provide food for these migrant laborers especially. So these are some important things that you need to remember regarding this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says monsoon session likely from July 19th to August 13th. So if you are talking about this topic which mainly focusing on this monsoon session, that means this topic related to our parliamentary sessions. So this topic is very important from your prelims point of view, and it is important from GS paper 2 under polity. So what you have to focus here? So you have to focus when this monsoon session will be started. And you need to know some background regarding parliamentary sessions. So I will give you a small mnemonic to remember this parliamentary sessions also, don't worry about that. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So first let us see context. So if you see context, it mainly says that the monsoon session of parliament is likely to begin on July 19th and go till August 13th. So they are going to have 20 sessions in this monsoon session this year. So this article also says that there is no clarity as of now whether the existing COVID-19 protocols they will continue to be followed in this parliamentary session or not. Because as you know here in this parliamentary building, so we are not going for a physical distancing measure because it will take a lot of space. So because of this we are going for this Central Vista project, right? So because of this article mainly says that here there is no clarity regarding whether they are going for existing this COVID-19 protocols they will continue to follow or not. So now let us try to see some more details. So 403 members out of 540 in Lok Sabha and 179 members out of 232 in Rajya Sabha, they got both doses of vaccines and rest of the people they don't. So because of this they are not clear that whether they are going to follow this COVID-19 protocols or not. So now let us try to talk about what is importance of this session, this monsoon session. So this is the first session since May 2nd results of assembly elections in 4 states and union territories, for example Puducherry, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So because of this what happened, opposition will be very much stronger. Okay, so here opposition may take some important issues for discussion like taking up of management of pandemic in the second wave and as well as regarding vaccination drive. So because of this session is important. And now let us talk about some facts regarding what is this parliamentary sessions. So if you're talking about this parliamentary sessions, who is empowered? Our President of India. President of India is empowered to summon each House of Parliament from time to time. So according to Article 85 of Indian Constitution, which mainly says that maximum gap between these two sessions of Parliament, that should be not more than 6 months. So this is important article that you need to remember. So which article in our Indian Constitution which mainly talks about a gap between two sessions? That is Article 85 of Indian Constitution. And if you're talking about session, so what is meaning of this session? Session mainly means period between first sitting of House and its prorogation. So this gap is called as session. So in every year we are having 3 sessions in our parliament. So first one is budget session, second one is monsoon session and third one is winter session. So I will give you a mnemonic, okay, don't worry about that. So budget session, that is between February to May. That means February, March, April and May. It is normally 4 months. And monsoon session is between July to September. July, August and September, it is approximately 3 months. And next one is winter session, that is between November to December, it is 2 months. So here we have budget session, we have monsoon session and we have winter session. So BMW, okay. So this session mainly starts from February. So B, budget session from February, monsoon session from July, J, and winter session from November, okay. So you can remember like BMW fast jate nahi, okay. BMW fast jate nahi. And if you want to remember months, that is 432, that is February to May and July to September, and next one is November to December. So BMW fast jate nahi, so it is a one mnemonic, so you can remember the session like this. So if you are talking about especially this monsoon session, which is mainly held between July to September, that is for approximately 3 months, and here they will discuss matters of public interest. So these are some important things that you need to remember regarding this. And now let us try to think about what is importance of this parliamentary sessions. So why we need this parliamentary sessions? So if you are talking about different organs of our states, we are having legislature, we are having executive and we are having judiciary. So these are 3 important organs. So what is work of this legislature? They will make laws. So what is the work of executive? They will implement laws. So what is work of judiciary? They will interpret laws. So whatever laws which are made by legislature, whether they are in accordance with our constitution or not. So if they are in accordance with our constitution, okay, it is good. But what happens if they are not in accordance? They will be made null and void or unconstitutional by judiciary. So if you are talking about this legislature, which is important because so it will go for law making process. So this law making process mainly dependent on when parliament meets. So for this proper functioning of this legislature, we need to go for this parliamentary sessions. And next one is, whenever we are having these parliamentary sessions, we can go for a thorough scrutiny of government functioning and as well as deliberation on national issues. So this can be taken place whenever two houses are in session. And next one is, we can go for predictability in functioning of our parliament, and it is a very important key for well functioning of our democracy. So for all these things, these parliamentary sessions are very important. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says Chamoli disaster due to avalanche. So this article mainly talking about this Chamoli disaster. So if you are a new student and if you are seeing my video today itself, so you need to know background about this Chamoli disaster. So what happened in recently, we saw flash flood in Uttarakhand, right? Uttarakhand, we saw this flash flood. So in February 2021, we saw flash flood that happened in this Chamoli district in Uttarakhand. So at that time we studied the reason behind this glacier lake outburst flood. Glacier lake outburst flood, which is a one important reason for this flash flood in this Chamoli disaster, Chamoli flash flood. But this article mainly says that there are two important reports, one released by Geographical Survey of India, okay, Geological Survey of India, which mainly says that so this is not because of glacier lake outburst flood, but it is mainly due to avalanche. Avalanche means, in simple term, we can say sudden fall of rock debris, snow debris suddenly, and then that will lead to block of this river. So finally that led to reverse flow of water, and that attacked or that damaged two important hydropower dams. So that led to flash flood. So this is some background. Okay, and one more report in journal Science also came up with the same conclusion here. So here you need to know some facts regarding what is avalanche. So it is your duty to do some research regarding what is this avalanche. So this article will be important regarding disaster management and also environment and ecology. So why environment and ecology? Because so what caused this avalanche? So this article mainly says that sudden change in weather, okay, that led to this avalanche. So because of this, we can also connect this topic with environment and ecology. So I want to give you a small suggestion. So if you are reading any topic, please don't confine to only one subject. So you have to think that topic in multi-dimensionally. Okay. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that the flash flood on February 7th in Chamoli district in Uttarakhand, which mainly claimed 72 lives and at least 200 people missing. It mainly due to large mass of snow, ice, rock avalanche, along with a hanging mass of rock which crashing into Ronoki Gar Valley floor. So because of this, that led to this flash flood disaster in this Chamoli district. So if you see details, it mainly says that it is a combination of rock, snow, ice that led to rapid flow of downstream of this Ronoki Gar and into Rishi Ganga Valley. So this is the data which is given according to Geological Survey India report. And because of this downstream flow of this rock, snow and ice, that destroyed 13 megawatts Rishi Ganga power plant, and it also damaged 520 megawatts of Tapovan Vishnugarh Hydel power project also. So these two power projects, they are mainly destroyed by this avalanche. So recently a report in journal Science which also came up with similar conclusion. So it mainly said that nearly 27 million cubic meter of rock and ice has crushed into ice floor. Okay, so because of this, that led to this disaster, not because of glacial lake outburst flood. So now let us try to see contributing factors. So unusually warm weather which mainly observed change in hydrometeorological conditions between 4th to 6th February 2021. So at that time we saw heavy snowfall which mainly followed by sudden warmer climate. So because of this snow which mainly accumulated that converted into water, and because of this that led to sliding movement here. So this might possibly trigger this huge snow or rock avalanche. So this is about this study. So now let us move on to some important facts. Let us focus on this Geological Survey of India. So from this part you can get some prelims based questions. So if you're talking about this Geological Survey of India, so which was set up in 1851, so which was set up primarily to find coal deposit for the railways. And after over some years, so it has not only grown into repository of geoscience information, but it also attained status of geoscientific organization of international repute. And this Geological Survey of India attached to Ministry of Mines. So this is important thing you need to remember. And headquarters located at Kolkata, and there are 6 regional offices of this Geological Survey of India. For example, at Lucknow, Jaipur, Nagpur, Hyderabad, Shillong and Kolkata. So these are 6 regional offices. And if you are talking about main functions, so important mandate of this Geological Survey of India, it is mainly creation and as well as updation of national geoscientific information and mineral resource assessment. So these are some important things that you need to remember regarding this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says Indians value religious freedom, not integration. So this article mainly talking about Pew Center report. Pew Center report on this religious freedom. So here I want to give you one more dimension. So please open your Lakshmikant and you need to refer some facts regarding this religious freedom. So in which article of our Indian Constitution which mainly talk about this religious freedom, and let me know in comment box. So this article will be important regarding GS paper 2 under polity. So we are going to see what are the highlights of this report, that's it, and it is your duty to refer about this religious freedom. And now let us see context. So if you see context, it mainly says that according to national wide survey of religious attitudes, behavior and belief, so this survey conducted by this Pew Center research, so this report mainly says that most Indians cutting across religions, they feel they enjoy religious tolerance, and major religious groups, they show a marked preference for religious segregation. So this article mainly says that so they mainly respect religious freedom, but they want to live separately. So this is gist of this report. So if you see data, it mainly says that so report mainly found it 91% of Hindus, they felt that they have religious freedom, and about 85% of people, they believe that they respecting all religions, it was an important duty of a true India, but they want to live isolate or segregate. And next one is 80% of Hindus, they stated that their respecting other religions was an integral part of being Hindu. So this is about Hindu community. And now let us see about Muslims and Christians. So 89% of Muslims and Christians, they felt they are free to practice their religion. But one important cause of concern which mainly said in this report is, so they are not accepting inter-religious marriages. Okay, so Muslims, they want to marry only Muslims but not other religions. So this is one important concern mainly highlighted by this report. And if you see others like Sikhs, Buddhists and Jains, they are also feeling very much free to practice their religion also. Okay, so this is gist of this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says how Narasimha Rao found an ally in Germany. So in this article, we are mainly seeing about contributions of this PV Narasimha Rao to our country. So that is important. So this topic will be important regarding GS paper 2, and this comes under contributions of important personalities. So if you are talking about this PV Narasimha Rao, so why he is in news? Because the centenary celebrations of this PV Narasimha Rao held. So because of this is in news. So now let us see some key points here. So this person PV Narasimha Rao was born on 28th June 2021 in erstwhile Nizam's Hyderabad state. So he was a freedom fighter, he was an academician and literary figure, and he was also 9th Prime Minister of India from 1991 to 1996. So if you see this year 1991, we went to one important economic reforms, that is LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization in India. And he also published Sahasra Fund. This Sahasra Fund, it is a Hindi translation of famous Telugu novel, that is Veyi Padagalu. Okay, so Veyi Padagalu, which is one of famous Telugu novel. So it mainly translated into Hindi as Sahasra Fund. Okay, so he published that Sahasra Fund. And if you're talking about economic reforms during his period, he sought to dismantle restrictions which are mainly imposed under licensed Raj, and also he tried to reduce red tapeism, and also he wanted to make Indian industries more competitive with other international industries. And he also known for bringing policy of economic liberalization in India, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization in year 1991. And he also played an important role in expanding private, and as well as he also responsible for increasing in foreign investment in India. And this economic liberalization in India, which is mainly having a goal of making Indian economy more market and service oriented. So these are some important things that you need to remember from economic reforms side. And if you are talking about foreign policy, he established good diplomatic relationship with Israel. So now also Israel, it is very important to India, because recently drone attack that is seen in Jammu and Kashmir Air Force. Okay, Air Force. Then what happened here? Israel, it is very much developed technology, and it know about how to use these drones and how to contain these drones. So we need to properly collaborate with this Israel to get this type of technology. And next one is we need to, under this foreign policy, here PV Narasimha Rao also came up with this Look East policy. So this Look East policy also initiated during his tenure. And he also known for reversing decades of unfriendly relations with US. Okay. And next one is he also come up with some constitutional reforms. He came up with the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. So these Constitutional Amendment Acts are related to empowering local bodies, that is panchayats and also municipalities. So these acts are enacted during his tenure. And next one is he also called as father of Indian nuclear program. So he mainly responsible for energizing National Nuclear Security Ballistic Missile Program, and finally it resulted in 1998 Pokhran nuclear test. And next one is national security. He also very much fairly successful in controlling separatist movements in Punjab and also Kashmir. So these are some important contributions of this PV Narasimha Rao to our India. So this is just of this topic, and now let us move on to next topic. Title says Flying Terror. So this article mainly talking about we need international cooperation, and this cooperation will be very much helpful to combat new models of this terror attacks. So if you see background of this article, we studied in our yesterday's lecture, like we saw drone attack on Indian Air Force base in Jammu, right? So because of this, we can see now terror organizations or terror outfits, they are using drones to attack. Okay, so because of this is in news. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So this topic will be important regarding our security and as well as defense, which mainly comes under GS paper 3. So if you see here, this article mainly focusing on drones attack. So this drones attack is one of new mode of terrorism we are seeing. So terror organizations, terror outfits mainly use these drones to attack, right? So recently here, drone attack mainly happened on Indian Air Force base in Jammu on June 27th, 28th, 2021. So because of this drone attack, we do not see any casualties, only 2 people they injured in this incident. So use of these drones to attack this military target points, that may be the future terrorism, okay. So now because of this, one question mainly arises here is, so use of this unmanned aerial vehicles or autonomous weapon system or robotic soldiers by states in warfare and as well as policing. So now they raised moral and as well as some practical questions. So the solutions regarding these questions are remained unresolved. So this is one important thing we need to talk about. So if you're talking about some examples regarding these drone attacks, so in 2018 Syrian rebels, they used homemade drones to attack Russian military bases in Syria. And even recent Venezuelan president, he had a narrow escape after a drone flying towards him and exploded a short distance. Okay, exploded at a short distance. So he said he had a narrow escape from this drone attack. And even in 2019, Houthi rebels, they claimed their responsibility for bombing Saudi oil installation using drones. So in this way, these new modes of sabotage and violence that enabled by technology, that reduce cost for people, or that is terror organizations, and as well as there is risk of identification of terrorists, and that is also increasing efficiency of these terror attacks. So because of this, now security forces, they would found these conventional tools are not at all sufficient to combat this terrorism now. Okay, so in this way, terrorism may not even require organizations, may not require individuals with sufficient motivation and skills, but now these terror outfits, they can carry such attacks mainly using drones. Okay, so in this context, whatever the international frameworks they are present for controlling proliferation of technology, for example, we are having Wassenaar Agreement, we are having this Missile Technology Control Regime, that is MTCR, they are useless now. So if you are talking about India's membership, India is a member of both this Wassenaar Agreement and as well as this Missile Technology Control Regime, that is MTCR, but these are useless now. So if you are talking about especially India has sought to deal with terrorism with a combination of stringent laws and as well as invasive surveillance and harsher policing and offences against other countries. So this approach had only limited success in ensuring peace. So in this context, what is need? So we need enhanced international cooperation and also consensus on development and deployment of technologies. They are very much required to deal this type of challenges. Okay, so in this context, India can and must take an active role in this process. So this is just of this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. So before saying next topic, I want to make a small announcement on this platform. If you want to clear UPSC 2022, we came up with one excellent, highly beneficial and also highly economical course, that is current affairs package along with the mains answer writing practice. So how this course will be useful? So one thing you need to remember here is before entering into examination hall, you need to know at least 1.5 year current affairs for sure. And this is right time to join this course to cover this 1.5 year current affairs in a comprehensive manner. And why you need to focus on this current affairs? Because in prelims, in mains and even in interview, you can get questions from this current affairs. To answer those questions, so you need to master current affairs. And if you're talking about this mains answer writing practice, many students, they ignore this mains answer writing practice, especially freshers or new beginners. So even though with their hard work, if they clear prelims, they cannot clear mains without proper answer writing skills. So in this course, we are mainly focusing on how to improve your answer writing skills. And next one is, if you join this course, we also conduct prelims test on every Sunday and we provide video explanation part. So in this way, this course which is designed as per demand of UPSC. So finally, I want to say one thing. Please don't take this course as a choice. Try to join this course as soon as possible and achieve your dream of clearing UPSC. So for further details of this course, link which is given in description box. So please visit that once. And if you want to talk to me directly, you can call to this number 8074765513. And not only this course, we are also having Indian Geography that is dealt by me itself. So you can join this course. And the next one is, we are also coming up with some more courses regarding modern history, ancient history, medieval history, and also Indian economy that are going to be launched soon. So if you are liking those subjects, you can also join in that course individually. So now let's come back and let us say next topic. Title says apt judicial reminder in era of over criminalization. So this article mainly talking about definition of terrorism. And this article mainly talking about some black laws. For example, we are having UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and we are having TADA, we are having POTA. So we are mainly some of terror laws. So we are having number of terror laws in India, but there is no proper definition of this terrorism. So because of this, what happened, whenever there are many people, whenever they are showing some dissent against this government, then they are mainly filed cases under this UAPA, and there is denial of getting bail also. So in this way, these black laws are mainly misused in India. So this article mainly focusing on this criminal justice system, especially regarding this terror laws. So this article will be important regarding GS paper 2 under polity. So now we are going to see this topic in a very great detail. So first let us say context. So recently what happened, 3 student activists, mainly who are protesting against the Citizenship Amendment Act, they arrested under this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So recently Supreme Court gave judgment in 2021 that this Citizenship Amendment Act protests, they cannot be covered under expression of terrorism, and they were relieved. Okay, so this is context. So now if you are talking about this criminal justice system, it is an instrument of state, and it is also one of key index of state of democracy in country. And this criminal justice system that can be used only in last resort and only for most reprehensive wrongs. It cannot be used for each and every case. So only for last resort and as well as only for most reprehensible wrongs we can use this criminal justice system. So but unfortunately here crime originated in government policy itself. So because of this, criminal law reflects idea of power rather than justice now. So we are using this criminal law as an idea of power rather than justice. So because of this, many civil society or activists, student activists, intellectuals, protesters, they charge under this crimes of terrorism under this criminal procedure. Okay. So if you see, for example, these laws are mainly misused a lot. So if you are talking about data from 2015 to 2019, there are 7,840 persons they were arrested under this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, that is UAPA. But out of this 7,840, only 155 are convicted by the trial courts. And even Congress government misused this TADA. It is also related to terrorist activities. Okay. So after this, Supreme Court in famous Qatar Singh case 1994, it mainly said that prosecution has had unjustifiably invoked provisions of this TADA. Okay. And because of this TADA invocation, so one important thing mainly we can see is depriving the accused person to get even bail. That means whenever any person who is charged under this TADA or UAPA, they will not get any bail. So they are non-bailable offences. So if you see about this UAPA, so recently Delhi High Court in Asif Iqbal Tanha 2021 case that led to release of these 3 student activists who are mainly arrested under this UAPA relating to this Citizenship Amendment Act. So here Delhi High Court said that the controversy there is seen in meaning of a term terrorism. So if you are talking about definition of terrorism now, so there are more than 100 definitions of terrorism available globally, but there is no universal definition of this term terrorism either in India or even in international level. So even United Nations General Assembly had given this task to decide what is definition of terrorism, mailed it to a committee, and almost it passed 50 years, but there is no consensus on meaning of this terrorism. So this is one important concern we are facing. And under this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, so there is one section, that is section 15, which mainly defines a terrorist act. So this terrorist act means extremely wide and as well as vague words are mainly described about this, what is this terrorism. So it mainly says that any act with intent to threaten or likely to threaten the unity, integrity, security, sovereignty of India with intent to strike terror or likely to strike terror. So those activities mainly comes under this terror acts. So UAPA says by using bombs or by using dynamites or other explosive substances or inflammable substances or firearms or other lethal weapons, poisonous or noxious gases, if they are causing any death or causing any injury, so these acts will come under this terrorist acts. And next one is in Yaqub Abdul Razgar Meenan case of 2013. The Supreme Court said that terrorist act can range from explosions, threat to actual assassinations, car bombs, kidnapping, airline hijacking, mailing of dangerous materials, and as well as use of chemical, biological, nuclear weapons, etc. So this mainly comes under this terrorist act. So in this recent case of 3 student activists, so they do not do any of these things. So here they cannot be covered under expression of this terrorism under this UAPA. So because of those, this Supreme Court leave these 3 student activists. So if you are talking about other judgments regarding this terrorism, so Hitendra Vishnu Thakur 1994. So in this case, Supreme Court defined terrorism as use of violence which mainly resulting in physical, not only physical and mental, but also psychological effects on society as a whole. And important objective of this terrorism, it is to disturb harmony of society and mainly to terrorize people in society. And even in Qatar Singh 1994 case, Supreme Court said that mere disturbance of public order which mainly disturbs even the tempo of life of community, any particular locality, so it is not comes under this terrorist act. So because of this Citizenship Amendment Act protest which mainly done by the student activities, which mainly does not comes under this terror activity. So in this context, what can be done, what is need? So first one is police, they must be more cautious in charging people under this black laws by UAPA, TADA, POTA and as well as National Security Act. And here mainly terrorists, they use strategy like pushing a civilized state into state terrorism. So this is a one of tried and as well as tested strategy which mainly used by this terrorist. So we should not fall into trap of that strategy. And we need to go for creation of truly just, egalitarian and non-oppressive society, and it should be more effective in combating terrorism. So these are the some steps that can be taken. Okay, so this is gist of this topic. And there is one article regarding anti-torture law. So this is very easy and you can read that. Because of time constraint, I am limiting to this topic. Okay, so by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll this current affairs package, Indian geography, etc. Okay, thank you so much.